In a world that thrives on chaos and noise, have you ever noticed how easy it is to react? A sudden insult, an unexpected setback, and there we are, caught in the whirlwind of emotions. But what if I told you that the secret lies not in reacting, but in responding with wisdom? Imagine standing on the edge of a storm where everyone around you is panicking, yet you remain calm, grounded, and in control. Think about it. Every time you react impulsively, you hand over your power to others. Your peace, your clarity, it's all at stake. How often have you wished you could take a step back, breathe, and choose your words or actions with intention? What if the key to mastering your emotions lies in a simple pause, a moment to gather your thoughts? This isn't just about self-control, it's about reclaiming your narrative and shaping your destiny. The ancient Stoics understood this well. Their wisdom teaches us that while we can't control external events, we can always control our responses. So, the next time life throws you a curveball, will you react or will you respond with the wisdom of a Stoic? If you're looking for more emotional balance, clarity in decision-making, and want to learn how to handle life better, this content is for you. So go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because with each video you'll grow stronger on the inside and see life with greater wisdom. The difference between reaction and response. Understanding the concepts. You know, there's a subtle yet profound difference between reacting and responding. It's something I've come to appreciate over time, especially in the heat of the moment. When we react, it's often impulsive, a sort of knee-jerk reaction that comes from our instinctual brain. It's a bit like when someone cuts you off in traffic, and before you know it, you're shouting at them as if they can hear you through the glass. That's a reaction, and it usually comes from a place of heightened emotion, often leading to regrettable outcomes. On the other hand, responding is a more thoughtful process. It's about taking a moment to consider the situation, to assess it before we say or do something. Imagine a situation where a colleague criticizes your work. Instead of snapping back, a thoughtful response might involve acknowledging their feedback and asking for clarity. It's a more mature and constructive way to engage, and it often leads to better outcomes for both parties involved. One of the primary reasons why understanding this difference is crucial is that it allows us to navigate our interactions with others more effectively. By recognizing when we're in a reactive mode, we can take a step back and shift into a responsive mindset. It's all about being aware of our emotions and the ways they influence our behavior. Trust me, I've had my fair share of regrettable reactions that could have been avoided with a moment of self-reflection. Moreover, the societal implications of this difference are profound. In a world that often prioritizes speed over reflection, understanding when to pause can be revolutionary. It's about creating a culture where we value thoughtful dialogue over impulsive exchanges. This shift not only enhances our personal relationships but also contributes to a more considerate society. Ultimately, the distinction between reaction and response is foundational for effective communication. It's a skill worth cultivating, one that transforms not just how we interact with others but also how we engage with ourselves. Learning to respond rather than react has been one of the most significant changes I've made in my life, and I can't recommend it highly enough. The importance of self-awareness in interactions. Self-awareness is a powerful tool in our interactions with others. It's like having a compass that guides us through the complexities of human relationships. When I first started paying attention to my own thoughts and feelings, I realized just how often I was operating on autopilot. I'd respond to people without really knowing why, driven by unexamined emotions and assumptions. It was a revelation to understand that being self-aware allows us to catch ourselves before we say something we might regret. One of the key benefits of self-awareness is that it helps us understand our triggers. We all have certain buttons that, when pushed, can send us spiraling into anger or frustration. By recognizing these triggers, we can prepare ourselves for situations that might otherwise lead to a reactive response. For instance, if I know that I tend to feel defensive when someone critiques my ideas, I can approach those conversations with a more open mindset, ready to listen rather than react. Self-awareness also enhances our ability to empathize with others. When I take a moment to reflect on my own feelings, I become more capable of understanding where others are coming from. This understanding creates a deeper connection, as it allows for more meaningful conversations. It's funny how we often think we need to have all the answers, but sometimes just being present and acknowledging our own feelings can create space for others to share theirs. Moreover, self-awareness fosters accountability. When I'm aware of my emotions, I can take responsibility for my actions and their impact on others. Instead of blaming my reactions on external factors, I learn to own my responses. This shift in mindset not only improves my relationships but also cultivates a sense of integrity within myself. In essence, cultivating self-awareness is an ongoing journey. It requires practice and patience, but the rewards are well worth the effort. By becoming more attuned to ourselves, we open the door to richer, more authentic interactions with others. And trust me, the more I explore this aspect of my life, the more I realize how transformative it can be. Breathing techniques to calm the mind before responding. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your emotions are running high, and you know you need to respond but feel completely overwhelmed? I certainly have. That's where breathing techniques come into play. They're like a reset button for my mind, allowing me to step back from the chaos and regain a sense of calm. It's fascinating how something as simple as our breath can have such a profound effect on our emotional state. One technique that I find particularly helpful is the 4-7-8 breathing method. It's simple. I inhale for 4 counts, hold my breath for 7 counts, and then exhale slowly for 8 counts. This practice not only calms my nervous system but also gives me a moment to collect my thoughts. I remember a time during a particularly heated meeting when I felt my frustration bubbling to the surface. Just taking a few deep breaths allowed me to center myself, enabling me to contribute to the discussion more constructively. Another technique I often use is diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing. It's amazing how this technique can shift my mindset from one of anxiety to one of clarity. By focusing on expanding my diaphragm rather than my chest, I can engage my body's relaxation response. I've found that when I slow down my breathing, I can think more clearly and respond more thoughtfully. It's a game changer, especially in high-pressure situations. The beauty of these breathing techniques is their accessibility. I can practice them anywhere, whether I'm at my desk, in a coffee shop, or even in a tense social situation. Knowing that I have these tools at my disposal gives me a sense of empowerment. It's a reminder that I can take control of my emotional state, rather than letting my emotions control me. Incorporating breathing techniques into my daily routine has also made a significant difference in my overall well-being. It's not just about calming down in the moment, it's about developing a deeper connection with myself. The more I practice these techniques, the more adept I become at navigating my emotions, and that, in turn, allows me to engage with others more effectively. The role of empathy in effective communication. Empathy is one of those qualities that can truly transform the way we communicate with others. It's about putting ourselves in someone else's shoes and trying to understand their perspective. I've come to realize that when I approach conversations with empathy, the dynamics change completely. Instead of feeling like I'm in a confrontation, it often feels like a collaborative exchange of ideas. One of the most profound lessons I've learned about empathy is that it's not just about feeling sorry for someone. It's about genuinely trying to understand their experiences and emotions. For example, when a friend shares their struggles, I've found that simply listening and acknowledging their feelings can provide them with a sense of validation. It's not always about offering solutions. Sometimes the best thing I can do is be present and supportive. Moreover, empathy enhances our ability to communicate effectively. When I make an effort to truly understand where someone is coming from, I can tailor my responses in a way that resonates with them. I remember a disagreement I had with a colleague. By taking a moment to empathize with their concerns, I was able to find common ground and reach a resolution that satisfied both of us. It's amazing how empathy can bridge gaps that seem insurmountable. Empathy also fosters trust. When people feel understood, they're more likely to open up and share their thoughts and feelings. I've noticed that when I approach interactions with kindness and empathy, it encourages others to do the same. This creates an environment where open dialogue can thrive, leading to more productive and meaningful conversations. In essence, empathy is a cornerstone of effective communication. It allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, creating relationships built on understanding and respect. As I continue to cultivate empathy in my interactions, I find that it enriches not only my own life but also the lives of those around me. It's a powerful reminder that we're all in this together, navigating the complexities of human connection. Recognizing and managing emotional triggers. We all have those emotional triggers, situations or words that can send us spiraling into a whirlwind of feelings. I've had my fair share of encounters where a simple comment or action has triggered an intense emotional response. Recognizing these triggers is a crucial step towards managing them effectively, and it's something I've had to work on over the years. The first step in recognizing my emotional triggers was to pay attention to my reactions. I began to notice patterns in my behavior. For instance, I would often feel defensive when my ideas were challenged. By identifying this trigger, I started to ask myself why it affected me so deeply. This self-reflection allowed me to understand that it stemmed from a fear of inadequacy, which was a revelation in itself. Once I became aware of my triggers, I could implement strategies to manage them. For example, during discussions where I felt my defensive rising, I started practicing deep breathing techniques to calm my mind before responding. This allowed me to approach the conversation with a more open mindset, rather than reacting impulsively. It's incredible how a little pause can change the entire trajectory of a discussion. Moreover, I've learned the importance of communication in managing triggers. When I recognize a trigger in myself, I try to communicate it to those around me. For instance, if I'm in a meeting and I feel myself getting defensive, I might say something like, "I appreciate your feedback, but I'm feeling a bit sensitive about this topic." This openness not only helps me manage my emotions but also encourages others to be mindful of their words. In the end, managing emotional triggers is an ongoing journey. It requires patience and self-comp. The influence of critical thinking on decision-making. There's nothing quite like the moment when a decision looms before you, and your mind races through the possibilities. I've often found myself standing at that crossroads, caught between impulse and reason. Critical thinking is like a guiding light in those moments. It's about analyzing the situation, weighing the evidence, and considering the consequences before jumping in. I've learned that when I take a step back and think critically, I make choices that align more closely with my values and long-term goals. It's interesting to note how often we make decisions based on gut feelings or the first thing that comes to mind. I've been there, and let me tell you, it doesn't always end well. I remember a time when I rushed into a business decision without fully analyzing the data, and it cost me. That experience taught me the value of critical thinking. It's not just for academic pursuits but for everyday life. When I take the time to assess what I know, what I don't know, and why that matters, I invariably arrive at better conclusions. One of the key components of critical thinking is questioning assumptions. I've found that many decisions are clouded by preconceived notions or biases that we might not even be aware of. By asking myself why I believe something to be true, I often uncover layers of complexity I hadn't considered. This process not only clarifies my thinking but also enhances my understanding of the context surrounding my decisions. It's a bit like peeling an onion. Each layer brings me closer to the core of what I need to know. Moreover, critical thinking encourages a more comprehensive view of the problem at hand. Instead of looking at a decision in isolation, I've learned to consider the broader implications. How will my choice affect those around me? What are the potential ripple effects down the line? This holistic approach has transformed the way I make decisions. It's a practice I try to integrate into my daily life, from personal choices to professional engagements. In a world that often values quick answers over thoughtful responses, I've come to appreciate the art of critical thinking. It's not just about arriving at a conclusion, it's about the journey of understanding that leads there. The more I cultivate this skill, the more empowered I feel in my decision-making, and that's a feeling I wouldn't trade for anything. Strategies for active listening before responding. Active listening is a game changer, let me tell you. There's a distinct difference between hearing someone and truly listening to them. I used to think I was a good listener until I realized I was often just waiting for my turn to speak. It's a humbling revelation, but once I recognized it, I made a conscious effort to shift my approach. Now, I focus on being present in conversations, giving my full attention to the speaker, and absorbing their words without any distractions. One strategy that has worked wonders for me is the practice of summarizing what the other person has said before I respond. This simple technique not only shows that I'm engaged, but it also ensures I've understood their message correctly. I'll often say something like, "So what you're saying is," and then paraphrase their main points. It's amazing how this fosters a deeper connection and opens up the floor for more meaningful dialogue. I've noticed that when I do this, the other person feels valued and heard, which leads to richer conversations. Another effective strategy is to ask open-ended questions. Instead of jumping straight to my opinion, I've started to encourage the other person to elaborate on their thoughts. Questions like, "What do you think about that?" or "How did that make you feel?" invite them to share more. This not only gives me a clearer picture of their perspective but also deepens the intimacy of the exchange. I've found that people appreciate when you show genuine interest in their feelings and ideas. Sometimes, it's not just about the words being spoken but also about the silences in between. Embracing pauses can be incredibly powerful. Initially, I feared silence in conversations, thinking it was awkward. But I've learned that giving someone time to think can lead to more profound insights. It shows that I'm willing to wait for their thoughts rather than rushing to fill the space with my own. This practice has transformed the dynamics of my interactions, making them far more impactful. I've come to realize that active listening is not just a skill but a mindset. It's about valuing the other person's perspective and being open to what they bring to the table. The more I practice it, the more I appreciate the richness of human connection. It's a beautiful dance of thoughts and emotions that I cherish, and it has undoubtedly improved my relationships. The practice of the pause, how and why to implement it. In our fast-paced world, the idea of pausing often seems counterintuitive. Yet, I can't stress enough how invaluable the practice of taking a pause has been for me. When faced with a challenging conversation or a decision that requires careful thought, taking a moment to breathe and collect my thoughts has proven to be incredibly beneficial. It's like hitting the pause button on a remote control. It gives me the space I need to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. I remember a time when I was caught in a heated discussion, and my emotions began to bubble to the surface. Instead of letting those feelings dictate my response, I took a deep breath and counted to 3. That pause allowed me to regain my composure and think about the impact of my words. It's remarkable how just a few seconds can shift the entire tone of a conversation. By taking that moment, I was able to express my thoughts more clearly and calmly, leading to a more constructive dialogue. Implementing the pause isn't just about emotional regulation, it's also a strategic move. When I pause, I give myself the chance to gather information and consider the context of the conversation. It's an opportunity to reflect on what's been said and to formulate a response that is both relevant and respectful. I've found that this practice not only improves my communication but also builds my confidence in expressing myself. Moreover, the pause can serve as a powerful tool for empathy. In a world where we often rush to judgment, taking a moment to consider the other person's perspective can lead to deeper understanding. I've learned to use those brief moments of silence to think about how my words might impact the other person. This awareness has helped me navigate difficult conversations with more compassion, fostering a sense of connection even in disagreement. Ultimately, the practice of pausing is about creating space for thought, for empathy, and for genuine connection. It's a skill that requires patience and practice, but the rewards are immeasurable. The more I embrace this practice, the more I find myself engaged in meaningful conversations that enrich my relationships and understanding of others. The importance of context in choosing a response. Context is everything, isn't it? I've often found myself in situations where my initial response was off the mark, simply because I didn't fully grasp the context of the conversation. Understanding the background and the nuances of a situation can make all the difference in how I communicate. It's not just about the words spoken. It's about the emotions, the history, and the circumstances surrounding those words. One of the first lessons I learned about context was during a misunderstanding with a close friend. I reacted to a comment they made without considering what they were going through at the time. Looking back, I realized that if I had taken a moment to consider their perspective and the context of their statement, I could have responded with more sensitivity. That experience taught me to always seek clarity before jumping to conclusions. I've adopted a habit of asking questions to gain a better understanding of the context. Instead of making assumptions, I've learned to inquire about the situation. Questions like, "Can you tell me more about what you're feeling?" Or "What led you to that conclusion?" have opened up conversations that I might have otherwise misinterpreted. This not only helps me respond appropriately but also demonstrates that I value the other person's experience. Moreover, I've discovered that the context can shift the meaning of words significantly. What might seem like a harmless joke in one setting can be offensive in another. I've become more attuned to the dynamics at play in conversations, and it's made me a better communicator. By considering the context, I can tailor my responses to be more suitable and respectful, which ultimately fosters healthier interactions. In essence, the importance of context cannot be overstated. It's the lens through which we interpret communication, and neglecting it can lead to misunderstandings and conflict. By remaining aware of the context in which I'm engaging, I not only enhance my own communication skills but also contribute to more meaningful and constructive exchanges with others. How self-control can enhance interpersonal relationships. Self-control is one of those traits that can truly define the quality of our relationships. I've seen the difference it makes in my interactions with others, especially in challenging situations. When I manage my impulses and emotions, I create a space for healthier communication and deeper connections. It's not always easy, but the effort is undeniably worth it. I recall a time when I faced criticism at work. My initial instinct was to react defensively, but I took a step back and chose to respond with grace instead. By exercising self-control, I was able to listen to the feedback without letting my emotions cloud my judgment. This not only helped me understand the other person's perspective but also fostered a more constructive dialogue. It was a pivotal moment, reinforcing my belief in the power of self-restraint. Moreover, self-control allows me to approach conflicts with a clearer mind. When tensions rise, I've learned that responding out of anger rarely leads to positive outcomes. Instead, I try to pause and think before I speak. This practice has helped me navigate disagreements with more empathy and understanding. I find that the impact of body language on communication. It's fascinating how much of our communication is nonverbal. I remember once sitting in a cafe just observing people as they interacted. A couple was having a heated discussion, and while their words were muffled by the ambient noise, their body language spoke volumes. The way they leaned away from each other, arms crossed tightly, it was like a physical wall had been erected between them. This made me realize that our body language often conveys our true feelings, even when our words might say otherwise. It's essential to be aware of this because how we present ourselves can significantly affect the messages we send. I think back to my own experiences, particularly in professional settings. There have been occasions where I've walked into a meeting feeling confident, and I've noticed how others react to my posture and gestures. Standing tall with open arms tends to invite engagement, while slouching or fidgeting can create a sense of unease. I've learned over time that maintaining eye contact, nodding to show understanding, and mirroring others' body language can foster a more communicative environment. It's almost as if we have an unspoken agreement to connect when our nonverbal cues align. Interestingly, I've also found that the impact of body language can vary depending on the context. For instance, in a casual conversation with friends, relaxed postures and playful gestures can enhance the rapport. However, in a more formal situation like a job interview, a firm handshake, a steady gaze, and a composed stance can convey professionalism and confidence. It's a balancing act that requires a bit of awareness and practice. The key, I believe, is to be genuine and to let your body language reflect your true intentions. Moreover, cultural differences play a significant role in how body language is interpreted. I recall a time when I was traveling abroad and found myself in a discussion with locals. Their gesturing was more animated than I was accustomed to, and at first I felt overwhelmed. But soon I realized that their enthusiasm was a sign of engagement and interest, not aggression. It taught me that being open to different interpretations of body language is crucial in fostering understanding across cultures. This awareness has since influenced how I communicate with people from diverse backgrounds. In conclusion, the impact of body language on communication is profound. It's a reminder that what we do physically can often outweigh what we say verbally. Being mindful of our nonverbal cues can lead to more fruitful interactions, whether in personal relationships or professional settings. I've learned that by aligning my body language with my verbal messages, I can communicate more effectively and authentically. Examples of wise responses in challenging situations. It's easy to get caught off guard in challenging situations, isn't it? I remember a particularly tense moment during a group project at work. We were up against a tight deadline and tensions were running high. One of my colleagues snapped at another, and I could feel the air grow thick with frustration. Instead of jumping in with my own frustration or defensiveness, I took a deep breath and considered a more measured response. I suggested we take a moment to step back and reassess our priorities. That simple suggestion shifted the mood entirely. In another instance, I found myself in a heated argument with a friend over differing viewpoints on a sensitive topic. The conversation was escalating, and it became clear that neither of us was willing to back down. Instead of doubling down on my position, I asked her to explain her perspective further. This not only diffused the situation but also led to a deeper understanding between us. It's incredible how a tactful question can turn a potential conflict into a constructive dialogue. On the receiving end of poor service at a restaurant, the waiter was overwhelmed and my order was incorrect. Rather than expressing my irritation, I calmly pointed out the mistake and asked if it could be rectified. The waiter, visibly relieved by my approach, went above and beyond to ensure my experience improved. This taught me that patience and understanding can often lead to better outcomes than confrontation. Reflecting on these experiences, I've realized that wisdom in our responses often comes from a place of empathy and understanding. When we take a moment to consider the other person's feelings, we can respond in a way that is not only constructive but also compassionate. It's about finding common ground even when the situation feels adversarial. I believe that by choosing our words carefully and responding thoughtfully, we can navigate even the most challenging conversations with grace. In essence, wise responses can transform challenging situations into opportunities for growth and understanding. It's a skill I continue to develop, recognizing that our words hold the power to either escalate or de-escalate a situation. By staying calm, asking questions, and being empathetic, we can foster better communication and strengthen our relationships, even in the midst of conflict. The relationship between emotional intelligence and thoughtful responses. Emotional intelligence has become quite the buzzword lately, hasn't it? But let me tell you, it's more than just a trendy term. I've found that developing my emotional intelligence has profoundly impacted how I respond to others. It starts with self-awareness, recognizing my own emotions in different situations. For instance, when I feel frustration bubbling up, I've learned to pause and reflect on what's driving that feeling before reacting. This has helped me cultivate more thoughtful responses, rather than knee-jerk reactions. Understanding the emotions of others is equally important. I recall a moment during a team meeting where a colleague was visibly upset about feedback received on a project. Instead of brushing it off or focusing solely on the task at hand, I acknowledged her feelings. I said something like, "I can see this feedback has affected you. Do you want to talk about it?" This small gesture opened a dialogue that not only helped her process her emotions but also led us to collaborate more effectively moving forward. It was a reminder of the importance of empathy in our responses. I've also realized that emotional intelligence plays a crucial role in conflict resolution. When tensions rise, it's easy to get defensive or aggressive. However, by recognizing the emotional undercurrents at play, I can respond more thoughtfully. For example, during a disagreement with a friend, rather than escalating the situation with my own frustration, I focused on understanding their perspective. This allowed us to navigate the disagreement with respect, ultimately strengthening our relationship. Additionally, I've come to appreciate the role of emotional regulation in thoughtful responses. There have been times when I've felt overwhelmed in stressful situations, and that's where grounding techniques have come in handy. Whether it's deep breathing or taking a moment to collect my thoughts, these strategies help me manage my emotions and respond more calmly. It's fascinating how emotional intelligence can transform not just individual interactions but the overall tone of a conversation. In summary, the relationship between emotional intelligence and thoughtful responses is undeniable. By cultivating self-awareness and empathy, we can navigate our emotional landscape and respond in ways that foster understanding and connection. It's an ongoing journey for me, but I've seen the positive impact it has on my interactions. With practice, I believe we can all develop our emotional intelligence and enhance our communication skills. The value of continuous learning for improving communication. I've often said that communication is a skill, and like any skill, it requires continuous practice and learning. I remember when I first started my career. I thought I had a good grasp of effective communication, but as I encountered various situations, I realized there was so much more to learn. Whether it was understanding different communication styles or learning to articulate my thoughts more clearly, I found that every experience was an opportunity for growth. Reading books on communication has been a game changer for me. I stumbled upon a fantastic book that delves into active listening and the art of persuasion. It opened my eyes to techniques I had never considered before. I started implementing these strategies in my daily interactions. The difference was remarkable. I noticed that not only was I able to express myself more clearly, but I was also fostering better connections with others. It's incredible how a few new techniques can shift the dynamics of a conversation. Moreover, I've sought out feedback from peers and mentors. Their insights have been invaluable in highlighting areas I could improve. For instance, one colleague pointed out that I sometimes interrupt when I'm excited about a topic. Recognizing this has allowed me to practice patience and active listening, leading to more meaningful exchanges. I've learned that embracing constructive criticism is a vital part of the continuous learning process. Attending workshops and seminars has also contributed to my growth. These experiences have provided not only new techniques but also the chance to practice them in real time. I remember a workshop focused on nonverbal communication, where we did exercises to improve our body language. The immediate feedback from instructors and peers was incredibly helpful, and I walked away with practical skills that I could apply right away. It reinforced the idea that learning doesn't just happen in a vacuum, it often thrives in collaborative environments. In essence, the value of continuous learning and improving communication cannot be overstated. It's an ongoing journey that enriches both personal and professional interactions. By remaining open to new ideas and feedback, I've discovered that I can continually refine my communication skills. It's a commitment to growth that I believe will serve me well throughout my life. Cultural differences and their influence on responses and reactions. Cultural differences can significantly shape our responses and reactions in conversations. I've had my fair share of eye-opening experiences while traveling and interacting with people from diverse backgrounds. One instance that stands out to me was during a business trip to Japan. I quickly learned that directness, which is often appreciated in my own culture, can come off as rude there. Instead, subtlety and context are valued. This awareness pushed me to adapt my communication style, aiming for a more nuanced and respectful approach. I recall a dinner where I was seated. As we wrap up this exploration of responding with wisdom rather than reacting impulsively, let's take a moment to reflect. Imagine the next time you face a challenge, will you let emotions dictate your actions or will you pause, breathe, and respond thoughtfully? This isn't just about controlling your reactions, it's about empowering your choices. Remember, every moment is a chance to practice this skill. The next time someone provokes you, ask yourself, what would a Stoic do? How can I turn this situation into an opportunity for growth? Each interaction is a stepping stone towards mastering self-control. Now, I want you to think about your own life. What situations have you faced recently where a measured response could have changed the outcome? Write them down. Reflect on them. This practice isn't just a theory, it's a way of life that can transform how you navigate challenges. So, as you move forward, hold on to this idea. You have the power to respond wisely. Stay curious, keep questioning, and remember, every day is an opportunity to practice Stoicism. What will you choose today? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going.